Hey everybody, Ryan FMC here, and today we are doing another tier list. This time around, we are talking about all of the red legendary cards that are in Teppen to date. Before we talk about this tier list, I do want to say that I created this tier list with my chat, so it's mostly my ideas mixed in with some of my chat viewers over on Twitch, so it's kind of a combined group effort. And yet again, like any tier list, this is my opinion and a little of chat's opinion, so your opinions might be very different, and that's okay. You know, it's fun to discuss these things because why not, right? It's about a game that we all love, and it's fun to talk about things. Also, with this specific tier list, these are the red legendary cards, and it's not in this season or this meta or anything like this. It's just kind of in the game of Teppen, in the history of, a year and a half that the game has been out, and how do these cards really stack up against the other red legendaries, and really what red wants to do, not necessarily just in this meta, but overall in Teppen. That's enough about that. Let's start with the S tier. And yet again, it's, S through F and left to right. The left to right kind of gets a little muddled because some of these cards are so good, so you're kind of nitpicking. So it's really important to look at the S, A, and B tier. But first up is S tier. And we have Liberation Slash. This is just so good. 2 MP for an action that deals 9 damage to a unit and gives plus 9 life to that hero's the controller of that unit. It's so good. Yes, your opponent gains life, but guess what? It's 2 MP, remove most anything without shield, and yeah, they might gain life, but maybe your opponent's at 30 and they don't gain any life. Also, this can be a life gain action, right? If you are in desperate, dire need to gain some life, you can use this on your own unit. So it's super efficient removal spell and also could just be a great way to gain some life. Next up is we have Fate Defying Ryu. What's there to say about this card? This card has been top tier ever since it came out, and it was in core set, so the very first set of Teppen. And even with more powerful cards being introduced into the card pool that we can play, it is still such a heavy hitter, and it's not going anywhere. It just does so much. Next up is a new addition, Sun Goddess. This one is so good because it is 3 MP, so not completely free ever, since even in active response you still have to pay 1, but it's 3 MP. If your hero is red, they gain reduce all damage of friendly units take by 1, and increase all damage enemy units take by 1 for 25 seconds. It might not on paper seem super powerful, right? It seems good, it seems powerful, but man, in play, this just helps you win so many trades on board, and especially in metas with a lot of units, or like Amaterasu Growth right now, or Growth Mirrors. This really helps you to break the mirror or just break board stalls, because all your units are gaining a little bit more attack and more HP for 25 seconds, and 25 seconds is not the longest effect, but still quite a long time, so this definitely is worth its salt for sure. The last S tier is none other than Torchbearer Axel. This came out in not Day of Nightmares, TDA. So this has still been around for quite some time. 3 MP for 1/8 with growth 3. Now you might see this and be like, oh, it's only for growth decks. No. It's only growth 3. You could throw this into any red deck and you're probably going to be pretty darn happy. When you get growth 3, level 2 turns into a unit in front and activates when played ability of that unit. That is so powerful. You know how many times you can get a Rochi or something like that and just be like, well, GG opponent, I stole your broken unit and now I have it on board. Especially base level, it's 3 MP for 1/8. That's not something you're going to play, but 8 HP is so good because this means it can take a couple hits of damage and then it can flip, which just makes this a powerhouse and an auto include in a lot of red decks. As you can see, there is a slew of A tiers, and overall red just has a lot of powerful legendaries, and some of these were kind of in the S tier and then kind of got brought down to the A tier. Because one of the big deciding factors for me is the S tier is A lot of red decks want these, and they are so powerful. Where the A tier is still so powerful, but maybe not every single red deck, or maybe the power level just is slightly below. So man, these A tier, some of these are still so good. Like Ken is fantastic, right? 6 MP for a 3/7 with anti-air, growth 3, so it's easy to trigger the growth. Deal 7 damage. Might get buff if there's a unit with flight on the board, and then deal more damage. It is so, so good, but not every red deck wants this. It's more the growth-centric decks, but man, those decks that want it, it is so powerful. Then Trump card, right? Trump card sees a ton of play, very powerful. Used to be even more powerful, but it did get a nerf, but it's still there, right? It helps you just to, hey, towards the end of the game, get this efficient way to ramp up some MP for very low cost, and then just dump out your hand, hopefully, and then maybe squeak out a win because of Trump card. Then we have Kennedy. Kennedy is so good because it's 6 MP for a 3/7 with Rush, right there, great. And the one play deal damage split among all enemy units equal to the number of action cards used this battle, and then a destroy by damage deals 2 to the enemy hero. It is so good, especially in like Jill antibody activation. It is a powerhouse. Another powerhouse is Amaterasu herself. This goes into any growth deck. It is so good. Yes, it is 3 MP, which is super efficient, but this dies to so many removal spells, and it takes a while to grow up. So yes, it is a bomb of a card, but that's kind of why it's in A tier, not S tier, because it's fragile, and it takes quite a few triggers to make it less fragile, even though, yes, that's a knock against it, but the wolf is still for a reason. Up next, we have Ancient's Memory. 2 MP, deals 2 damage to an enemy hero or enemy unit. Memory 4 deals 5 damage instead. This did get a nerf, but it is still so efficient. 2 MP to deal 2 damage is not worth it, but that Memory 4 is not that hard for most decks to get. Not all decks. Some Amaterasu mono red growth decks don't necessarily want to play Agent's Memory because they're not playing tons of actions. However, some still do because they are playing a little bit more actions. But if you can trigger that Memory 4, 2 MP to deal 5 to any target, your opponent or one of their units, is definitely worth it. It's still so good and powerful, especially because the versatility of it can just go straight to their face and just be the final 5 points of damage. That is extremely big and not something we see tons. Usually most of actions in red is either to the opponent or to one of their units, not either or. And as soon as you have either or, that just bumps up the power level quite a lot. Then we have the grand finisher, State of Nothingness, 2 MP, give a friendly unit +1 attack for each time you used an action card during this battle. This can get out of hand very fast. So you don't even need this to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 +1 attack. It could just be 2, 3, 4 on agility flyer, and you just kind of win the game right there. Then the last A tier is Dragoon. Dragoon's just so powerful, right? It's another one. We see a lot of these 6 MP red units that are so powerful. This has Heavy Pierce, Anti-Air, Agility, Ascendant gets bigger, and gets Shield. It just does so much work. And sometimes, like in Amaterasu red decks, you want to play a couple of set units because you're playing so many 3 MP units, and then just ascend fodder to win the game. Next up, we have B tier. Still good, but definitely not that S or A tier. Maybe a little bit more niche. Not every red deck wants them, or maybe when you play, you don't necessarily win the game. This one kind of hurts me. It is Hunter Lady, 5 MP for a 2/7. When played, if there's a demon, +2/+2. Yeah. But the important part is when a friendly human unit is placed on the field, deal 4 pierce damage to a random enemy unit. When this came out, last set in Adventures of a Tiny Hero, it was fantastic, and it made human red decks a thing because this card was so good. However, with the new set, that kind of got a little bit pushed out of the meta for Amaterasu growth, where this card is still very good, but we've already seen it phased out, and that is why it's B. It's very powerful, but it asks a lot. It basically says, hey, you should only be playing human units in your deck, where other red decks are like, hey, like Amaterasu is like, hey, you should play growth units, but there's tons of growth units. I don't care about the tribe, whatever. So that's less restrictive than Lady. And that's kind of why Lady's in B. It's restrictive, but it's still very powerful. Up next, we have Lucia. Resonate turns, you're not playing a 5 MP 1/7. You need more. The Resonate, it flips in to Demon Form Lucia, 6 MP for a 2/6 with flight, agility, attack, deal 3 damage, split among all enemy units. This is a very good card, and it's also just Resonate 1, right? You just need to play one action and it flips. So this is not like a Resonate-centric build or anything. This doesn't really ask much of you in the deck building way. And it's good, it's efficient. It's B, right? There's a lot of red decks that just don't play it, even though it is good, efficient, and does a lot of work. Then up next is a controversial card, in my opinion, because a lot of people are a lot higher on this than I am, and not many people are lower on it. I'm actually almost a little bit lower. I actually almost want to put this in C, but I don't think that is correct. I think this is the bottom of B. It is Divine Spear, 7 MP for a 2/8 with combo, Ascend, gain +1 attack and agility, reduce any damage taken to 1, and this unit takes 1 damage every 5 seconds. My big thing is this kills itself. And you could be like, well, everything dies to removal, this kills itself, like whatever, it's still very powerful. And I'll be like, yeah, it is powerful, but it's 7 MP. Yes, 7 MP is not the highest, but look at everything. We've seen a ton of extremely powerful things for 3 MP with these two, or 5 MP, or 6 MP. 6 MP is the sweet, sweet home that red legendaries want to be in. This is 7 MP. This is one more for a effect that will kill itself. Yes, this will do a lot of damage, but day in, day out, I would rather be playing most any of these other lower cost units that I think are just better, and that is why Divine Spear is a B. Next up, we have C. C tier territory is kind of the, yeah, you're probably not really going to play it. You might play it a little bit, or some of these cards saw more play, but definitely got pushed out, like Dragon's Lord's Judgment. Deal 12 damage, split among all enemy units for 5 MP. That's fine, but it really got phased out. There's just way more efficient things to be doing. Even if those efficient things might be dealing less damage, they're like 2 or 3 MP, and that's where I want to be more times than not. And then we have Jill. She kind of saw her day in the light when she first came out and saw some play, but then just not tons of play, because 5 MP for a 2/9 that you need to start triggering Explore for to really get her going. You have to be playing Explore deck. Even if you're playing Explore deck, a lot don't play Jill just because she can be a little clunky, and I think that shows a lot, where this is a Explore-centric legendary card that Explore decks don't tend to play anymore. So that's why she's a C. She's good, you can play her, but there's probably other better things to be doing. Same with Rathalos. Rathalos kind of saw a lot of play, but then quickly fell out of favor because it's 8 MP. 8 MP for a 3/7 with flight and rush is not something you really want to be playing. However, after dealing damage to the enemy hero, deal 5 damage to a random enemy unit. That's a big effect, and man, if this can start dealing damage to the opponent, it is a powerhouse. However, it's still 8 MP, and it's not an attack trigger, it's when it deals damage to the enemy hero. So if they just put a bat or some other flying unit down, this doesn't get it. Yes, it will eat that bat or whatever, but it's too clunky, and it really doesn't see play. It sees less play than the other C's. Technically, this could almost be a D, but I still think like raw power level and what it does, and maybe some nostalgic factor, it's still in C. Up next, we got the Ds. These Ds, with Dragon Queen Wraithen as well as Infernal King, they're just not that good, right? They just aren't good. They're not necessarily like, oh, this is just a trash card, but like, let's take Keen for instance. 7 mana or 7 MP for a 3/7. Yet again, 7 MP is a little bit higher. It has agility, which is awesome. As a victory, explore for Supernova. Supernova says deal 8 damage to all units except for Infernal King. However, it's 4 MP. Still a good action. I wouldn't mind that. But it's a Victory Explore. Victory Explores can be hard to activate. So this is a legendary that doesn't really do anything base, like just when it enters the battlefield or when it dies, you have to get Explore with Victory. It just asks too much, and just, I'm just kind of off of it. I don't think that they're terrible cards. That's why they're not an F, but they don't see that much play. They never really saw that much play because they're weak, right? They're weak in comparison to the other red cards. I just noticed that this whole time, surprise, there is an F, a couple cards in F. I really didn't notice that we didn't, for some reason, it didn't save it. It is these 3 cards. First up is Dual Dragon Hado, 4 MP, deal X damage to enemy unit, where X is the number of units on the field plus 3. Nope, I'm off of it. This was also in core set. Even when it was just core set and basic cards, you didn't really see this play that much because there's way better things to be doing even back then. It's weak, right? That's the story of most of these F cards. They're just extremely weak. And then Turf War, 5 MP, deal 4 damage to all enemy units. If you have memory 7, give a random friendly unit +3/+3 for each unit destroyed by this card's effect. You can live in Magical Christmas Land where you kill 3 units and one of your units gets what, +9/+9, and that's fantastic. Day in, day out, this is a 5 MP card that's dealing 4 damage to all enemy units. I'd rather be playing Dragon Lord's Judgment or most any other 2 MP burn spells. We have so many good 2 MP removal spells in red that's what I'm going to be playing day in, day out. Or Chain of Fists and stuff like that, rather than a 5 MP Turf War. And then last but not least, but pretty much least, it is, but you know what? All these Fs are kind of the same to me. So maybe not least, but tied with least, is Disloyal Follower, 3 MP, deal damage to enemy unit equal to triple the number of times friendly units have had the Ascend status, and then it goes to your EX pocket, blah, 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 blah. It's just too much. One, it's like, hey, you have to be Ascend deck to make this work. And also it's 3 MP, and I would rather just be playing Chain of Fists. Like I said, that's the whole thing about this F tier, is that we've seen so much better and better red removal over time that these, even a 3 MP one, it's like, you know what? Whoa, follower, you're asking way too much of me. I'm just going to play Chain of Fists or Agent's Memory or something like that, and I'll see you later. I'm not going to see you later. But that's the red tier list. Red has a lot of really, really good cards. Like all the S and A, all these cards I'm super happy to play with. Even the B tier, more times than not, I'm happy. The C tier is that little like, yeah, it's fine, you can play it. It's really the D and F tier that were kind of the really misses. But even for me, really, the red legendaries only have 3 misses, and that is F. Overall, like I said, red has a ton of really good legendaries, and sometimes you're just nitpicking because a lot of these you are super, super hyped to play with. But thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time.